How did the Chargers roster evolve entering year 2 of the Harbaugh-Ortiz era? We're exploring that today on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes, your daily podcast for NFL and college football scouting. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's better than this? It's guys being dudes here on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast. We're the Draft Dudes. I'm Joe Marino from Locked On Bills. He's Kyle Krabs from Locked On Dolphins. And we are your NFL experts here with you daily to talk team building across the league on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast with the Draft Dudes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to issue a big thank you, shout out, and welcome to our everydayers. Those of you who never miss a single episode, we appreciate y'all being here very, very much.
Joe, I wanted to make you aware, I'm not sure if you are, but we've had another team that's put out a draft behind-the-scenes documentary. Have you seen it?
Seen a few. I've watched the Giants, the Eagles, the Bills, the Colts.
What would you do if I told you the Baltimore Ravens have one, and it's 30 minutes long?
Oh, yeah. That's probably stop what I'm doing and watch that. Yeah.
Okay, do we need to stop recording?
Well,
follow up, or
I was doing anything else besides recording a podcast with you, I would stop and watch that.
So it starts with, speaking of Joe Ortiz, right? The formerly of the Baltimore Ravens. There's your segue for when we get done here. Starts with NFL Combine interviews with some of the guys that they drafted, and then DaCosta waiting out pick number 27, and then kind of going into Friday night. It's very good.
I'm excited. I could eat all that up, even though it's intentionally designed to show what they want you to see.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, I still love it
because I want to see all of it. So you can show me whatever portions of it you want.
Yeah, right.
I want to see all of it.
Show me the stuff. All right. Speaking of showing me the stuff, what is in store for this Chargers team in year 2 of the Harbaugh-Ortiz era? Finished second in this division, playoff team in year 1 under Harbaugh. Amazing what can happen when you just have a normal head coach, right? That was probably the biggest thing that happened to this football team, but they're certainly starting to craft this thing in their own image. And so the Chargers are in the spotlight today. It's AFC West week on this podcast. Last week we did the NFC North, AFC West this week as we look through these teams and we assess every player on the roster. And Kyle and I go through, we study these teams, and we score the depth chart, every player into different buckets: roster cornerstone, quality starter, rookie, sufficient starter, replacement level, quality depth, non-roster caliber, incomplete evaluation, and a practice squad developmental player. We go through all of those different buckets, have numeric values assigned. It's weighted for each position. And by the end of the summer, we will be able to stack these rosters and really look at them from the perspective of where they're lacking, where they're strong, how teams are built in certain areas. And this is just part of making that all happen. So the Chargers are up today. We're talking skill players, then trenches, then the back seven.
I think the first thing that really stood out to me about the skill players, Joe, is you really like yourself some Lad McConkey.
He's a baller, man.
He is a baller. I was surprised to see his positional categorization here, though.
I put him as a roster cornerstone already.
Yeah, you did. You didn't do that for Joe Alt, sir.
Man, I thought about it. I did. I thought about that a lot. I thought to myself, I'm putting Brian Thomas Jr. he'll be a cornerstone. I got to put Lad in there too, man.
He had a great season.
Right. And all things considered, man, not a whole lot of help.
Right. I think that's what's exciting is some of the more complementary skill sets in the skill group as a whole that are going to make them a more challenging team to be ready for and have to defend. And I'm not just talking about, Trey Harrison, Keandre Lambert-Smith at wide receiver as two new additions to that room with different skill sets for sure than Lad McConkey, but you bring in Mike Williams in free agency. So you went out and got some size guys for playing on the outside. You add a Tyler Conklin and a Rondé Gadsden to the tight end room to go with Will Dissly, who's a really good, low ceiling pass catcher, but a very good when he's healthy run blocking player for when you go with 11 personnel. And then you have a Marion Hampton and potentially Najee Harris's new names in the running back room, running behind this offensive line, and Disley when he's blocking. And yeah, man, I think they can go 11 or they can go 12 personnel now and have a lot of mismatch opportunities. And they can play any style of football game that I think you're going to want to play with your defensive personnel, or they can stress you with it, because I think this is a much more diverse group now than what it was last year.
A lot of size, man. You have big bodies in these skill players. Mike Williams back. Quentin Johnson's big. Trey Harris. O'Marin Hampton's a big back. Najee Harris is a big back. Disley. Gatson as a power slot. Size. And then, here's Lad McConkey, who's not as big, but shifty and really detailed route runner. Really freaking good route runner. And then Darius Davis, who gives the speed element as well. So they've got big bodies that can win leverage battles. They got speed down the field. They've got shiftiness. They got power running backs. They want to dictate terms, Kyle. I think that's what I'm picking up from this collection of talent around Justin Herbert is you better be able to match up, because there's going to be problems. We're going to present problems for you with how we can attack your defense.
It's been really interesting to see as we've been working through now 7 teams. There's been a few teams that I've looked at their skill groups and really acknowledged and been impressed with the size and physicality of the groups. Like we just talked about it yesterday with the Broncos, with Cortland Sutton and Pat Bryant and Devon Vele and Trent Sherfield to go with Evan Ingram. And then obviously Harvey's not a small player, and Audric Estime in the backfield for them. So that's kind of AFC North. Put your big boy pants on, right? There's a lot of physical, even the Raiders with Brock Bowers and I think they have a chance to be a great 12 personnel team with Genty in the backfield. Mm-hmm. And they drafted big receiver in Dante Thornton and Jack Betch to go with Colin John. Like size here in the AFC West.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? You don't normally draw those parallels, but the division is shifting. And I think obviously with the Chiefs in this division and you wanting to be able to play winning football, and I think a lot of that's rooted in your ability to be physical and run the football and present size mismatches. And both the first round running backs go to this division, right? And Hampton and Genty. Like these teams are looking for offensive identities, and I think it's pretty clear with what the Chargers want to get done here. We knew that, right, with Harbaugh and Greg Roman coming over, but now we've had a couple of off seasons of them building it, and we know what this team wants to be. And then I think, you think about Justin Herbert as the guy that pulls it all together and how he has access to the entire field. Mm-hmm. A lot of stress, man. A lot of stress. Now look, there's a lot of good things in theory here, but we got to see it from Mike Williams coming back. What's he going to be? Injuries, right? It was a nothing burger last year. Quentin Johnson showed some life last year, but still a lot of variance, right, with his targets. We got to see with Trey Harris, a big jump for him coming out of that Lane Kiffin offense at Ole Miss, and I was a little bit lower on him, and so I'm curious to see how he fits into this equation. Condre Lambert-Smith, kind of an underachiever in college. So there's a lot of good things here in theory. It coming together is going to be important. Obviously, having a quarterback like Herbert and having this offensive line is certainly going to give it its best chance to be the best version of itself.
Let's talk about these backs. Bring this full circle to the conversation we started yesterday. How many of the Chargers running back room would it take to beat up a gorilla? This is the most physical running back room in the league, right?
There's no top to bottom.
Hampton, Najee Harris, Hassan Haskins, and Kimani Vidal, top 4.
Nobody's. We got 1,000 pounds worth of players, right? Don't we?
Just punch you straight in the mouth with these guys.
Yeah, man, I probably need 12 of these guys to beat a gorilla.
So, I mean, we're going to get ready to transition to the offensive line. And the offensive line is a big piece of the story here, but to see stylistically all of these backs stacking in the same running back room for Coach Harbaugh, it doesn't take a great imagination to figure out they're going to try to wear you down, right? Yep. And I think they've got a great group of guys with different ceilings and experience levels. But I think they've got a great group of guys to be able to achieve that. It's going to be a 12-round fight to fit up playing against the Chargers.
A big part of that's going to be their offensive line, which we're going to talk about here on the other side of it. So be sure to stick with us. Small business owner, your work doesn't end when the clock hits 5. Your business is always on your mind, which means when it's time to hire, you need a partner that works just as hard as you do. That's where LinkedIn Jobs comes in. When you clock out, LinkedIn clocks in. LinkedIn makes it easy to post your job for free, share it with your network, and get qualified candidates all in one place. You can post your job using LinkedIn's new feature that actually helps you write job descriptions, and then you can quickly get your job in front of the right people with deep candidate insights. And here's a pro tip for you. Add the hashtag hiring frame to your profile picture to double your reach to get those qualified candidates. No wonder 72% of small businesses say that LinkedIn helps them find high-quality hires. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply.
I think the Chargers offensive line, just a 1 through 5, could probably take the gorilla too.
Boy, you're not wrong about that.
Rashawn Slater, Zion Johnson, Bradley Bozeman, Mekhi Becton, Joe Alt. Obviously, Mekhi Becton, free agent addition. I believe that was a 1-year, $10 million contract that he signed to come over from Philadelphia. And then the depth guys being Andre James, Jamari Salyer, and Trey Pipkins.
Loaded.
And I know those guys, have had ups and downs, and you thought maybe Sawyer was going to be a long-term answer, and I know Pipkins got a contract extension from them. So, there's some disappointment from Chargers fans with how those guys ended up turning out. But for these guys being the depth guys on your roster, and then adding Andre James to that, who I know didn't have his best year last year with Las Vegas, but holy cow, man, the 1 through 8 here, I feel really good about if I'm the Chargers.
Yeah, no doubt, man. I think that'll be one of the best in the league if you measure it through the top 8. And man, these tackles, this is a special pair. Rashawn Slater, a cornerstone. Joe Alt, I mean, let's be honest, it's probably not going to take long for him to get that cornerstone label as well, based on what he showed as a rookie. And moving over to the right side there, pretty seamless transition. And I mean, it's 4 first-round picks on this starting group, and Slater, Johnson, Becton, and Alt. And, Bozeman's come in, and I think he's kind of really fits with this overall group where there's a lot of know-how and savvy there, but also he's a brawler too. He just kind of leans into this identity of what they want to be up front with physicality. And I mean, that middle three is a physical group, and those tackles can really move, and it sets up a lot, with how you can pass pro. If you want to go with 5-man surfaces, I think you can with this group and maximize your eligibles out in routes. You can go after people in the run game. This offensive line really gives them the multiplicity I think they want with how they built the skill players. Yeah.
I don't think you would bat an eye if you spent the vast majority of the game in 5-man protection and drop back passing and space the field accordingly, because you're getting 5 eligibles out. And that's obviously the big value in the game today is maximizing your eligibles as far as how the defensive rules allow them to play zone that turns into man, and you match guys based off release spacing, and makes it really hard if you're deficient and have to leave guys in the block to stress those coverage rules. And with this group, I mean, Alt was everything that I thought he would be he was my top player in that draft class. Now, there's some quarterbacks that have something to say about that when it's all said and done, mainly the one in Washington. But Joe Alt, from a readiness to play at a high level, translatability, I think the Chargers have to be over the moon with this iteration of the organization and this brain trust, that kind of being their marquee player of their first draft class. And it sets the tone for a lot of the things that we're sitting here talking about with this football team going into year 2 after a successful first season.
Somewhere in South Alabama, Phillip Rivers is thinking, yo, where was this? Where was this?
Right. You're not kidding.
Yeah, it was the last 5 years of his career. It's come on, man, this guy already can't move. This guy already cannot move.
And
all
then
right.
he tried to win to Indy, and like at least there was a pulse there, but the arm was just shot at that point for Phillip.
Yeah. All right. So we're shifting gears to the defensive line now, where, man, there's such an interesting mix here. There's a lot that I like. I love Tuipulotu. Like, he has become a really, really strong player for this team. And I think, it's a foundational nucleus piece moving forward. Khalil Mack is still playing at a high level late into his career, and they were able to get that taken care of where he could probably finish his career with the Chargers. But Kyle, we got questions elsewhere, right? I mean,
Pretty much everywhere else up front.
Yeah, I mean, Tier Tart, he's always so flashy. There's been consistency issues there. He's never been a high volume snap guy. I think Otito Ogbanya is more of a reserve depth player. They enjoyed what they got from Puna Ford, and then they didn't bring him back. I think Jamari Caldwell was a heck of a draft pick that's going to help. But Bud Dupree and Deshaun Hand, those are rotational players at best. We don't have a lot of answers outside of Mack and Tuipulotu here when it comes to this defensive front.
No. And I agree with you where the Jamari Caldwell pick is one that you get excited about for what he can potentially be as a unique build and athleticism component. I think the Deshaun Hand signing in free agency he could be a sturdy odd front end for a rotation if he's going to play 15 to 20 snaps a game. But some of these young guys like the Kyle Kennards of the world are going to have to really come in and perform at a high level, just like Jamari Caldwell, or else I think this is a great team that can be looking at potential trade opportunities or what's left in free agency. And I know that the bones there at defensive tackle are kind of picked over, but would like to have a little bit more upside with this group where, like, I think Tier Tart, you're just going to have to live with the good and the bad. Jamari Caldwell has upside, but is a rookie. Kyle Kennard is a rookie. Deshaun Hand, I don't think has a lot of ceiling. Khalil Mack's a player who's on the downswing. And let's be fair to Jesse Minter. I mean, statistically, this defense was outstanding last year, right? So
yeah,
I'm sensitive to that being a piece of the puzzle, but that I think makes it a greater testament to Jesse Minter and the coaching staff, because you looked at last year's group and Morgan Fox and Puna Ford, who came in and finally had the breakout that we thought he was capable of having. The secondary had Asante Samuel only played in 4 games. There was questions with it. And they had a lot of young guys that came in and played, particularly in the back 7. And I think that's where this unit is going to shine again, based off of some of the young guys and dynamic athleticism that exists behind the front. And the front's more of just, hey, we got bodies and we're going to rotate guys and keep some guys fresh.
So questions here on the defensive line. We need youth. We need players right now. But there's a lot to like about the back 7, which we will focus in on the other side of it. So folks, be sure to stick with us.
Daiyan Henley's turned into a nice player, huh?
Yeah.
I think that's one of the big takeaways that I had from doing my refresh here. And Henley, obviously, you knew the potential was there at Washington State as a guy who had the background in being a defensive back. And I think the fact that you have that paired with Junior Colson, who has all the time on task in the system after a little bit of extra time, gives you a really nice potential ceiling for a dynamic pair of young linebackers that can run. That's kind of where I get excited about starting in the linebacker group with the Chargers.
Yeah, and Henley's an interesting player, just thinking about his arc as a prospect. And you see some of these guys turn into what he's becoming, and you see some of them that just, it's not, they never develop the processing skills. Yeah, man, and they're little undersized, and it's problematic. Henley looks like a guy that's on the verge of being like one of the star backers in the league. There's a nice infusion of those, like in that Edge Cooper mold, and it's unfortunate for Dallas with Overshown getting injured, but like that style of backer kind of coming along, and Henley's certainly at the forefront of that conversation. And I do like that they still have Denzel Perryman as part of this mix to give them, if they need that downhill plug that can, that guy's been sniffing out run plays for, it feels like a decade now in the NFL. I think he's a useful player to tie this together. And of course, their safety tandem is really freaking good, man. Derwin James, still playing at an extremely high level. I mean, it was cool to see that transition out of the Staley defense into Coach Minter, and really you saw Derwin being vintage Derwin, and Ollie Gilman's become a really nice running mate for him to pair with James. And they got depth, man. Tony Jefferson, like coming out of retirement, and gave them good minutes late in the season. There's Elijah Molden's another one. Like, this safety mix is really, really strong to go with some upside at linebacker in Colson and Henley.
Yeah, it's the antithesis of what the Raiders have cooking in this division.
Yeah.
Devin Whitey, Landon Roberts at linebacker. And Chin and Polamalu is a good safety pair, but just no depth.
Yeah.
So, but that's, Minter as being a part of this defensive scheme, simulated pressure. I don't want to say revolution, but it's the flavor right now across the league. The more you can do on the back end, the more flexibility, the more different fronts you can present, because guys are going to be able to hit different landmarks, or the more different unique pressures you can bring, because you can put some of these safety guys in man-to-man coverage. And not every team has the ability to do that. And I think that's where the DNA, not too dissimilar to what like the Gannon Cardinals were last year too, right? Where like we talked about that, how that was a unit that was built from the back front as far as like the identifying pieces and the versatility of the room and what that allowed them to do. I think the Chargers are a better personnel version than what that group was last year. But kind of the same roster composition theories in play, where, man, you have a lot of interchangeability with the coverage answers you can get in the middle of the field. And then that's what allows all of this physicality that you've gone after at corner to disrupt the timing on the outside and force progressions inside, where you're hoping to create some miscommunications and get guys jump throwing windows.
Had some transition at corner, right? I mean, Asante Samuel Jr., he only played 4 games last year.
He might be back.
Might be back. We'll see.
Probably not.
Christian Fulton said goodbye. Thanks for everything last year. And they bring in Dante Jackson, Cam Hart, probably a starter, Benjamin St. Juste. Maybe it'll come together for him with the Chargers. But, I mean, outside of, I guess, Cam Hart, who played minutes for them last year, it's like Tarheeb Still, who emerged as a guy that I think is a little bit interchangeable, probably play in the slot. They've made some choices here at corner, and Dante Jackson being a piece that enters the equation after, I thought, a pretty good year from Christian Fulton. He goes to the Chiefs. I don't necessarily love the direction here at corner outside of what they have at Tarheeb Still.
Well, I mean, still almost played 800 snaps last year defensively. He was the third highest snap taker on the team defensively behind Henley and James.
Yeah.
I mean, that kind of time on task, you're excited about how that can continue to grow and expand. And then, Elijah Molden took 760 snaps last year. So, and I think he's another one of the names that you go 3 safeties, and obviously you've got Derwin James and all the different places that he can line up and show up and live. And I think Molden has some of that coverage ability as well. So I think maybe it's a little bit more off the beaten path to get to some answers. I certainly wish they had not presumably Dante Jackson is kind of the marquee name at this stage of Dante Jackson's career in the cornerback room, but it's like their front where they've got a lot of names, they got a lot of youth, and they have a player who already appears to have hit last year and still, and some versatility around him. But it'd be a big win for them if St. Juste can finally be a thing, right? And if it was ever going to happen, this feels like it would be the right kind of place for that to finally happen.
I totally agree with that. And maybe this is a team that's going to play more matchups. I think with what they have at safety, they should, right? That's probably the strength of their defense, 4 deep at safety that you really love, and the versatility of Elijah Molden really came together for them. And they played him a lot deep, right? I mean, they played him in some deeper alignments and allows some of those other guys to play lower. And maybe that's part of the equation here. And then you can be interchangeable a little bit with Tarheeb Still, who played most of his snaps in wide alignments last year. So I think the foundation here is probably versatility with what they do in the nickel, which then puts Still to wider alignments that allows you to get a third safety on the field. And then between Jackson, Hart, and St. Juice, like your other spots should be okay. It's different, right?
Yep.
And the team that I follow the closest is static with back 7.
Right.
So this is just nuts to me. You know what I mean?
We rotate the front and nothing else changes, right?
What do you mean? The back 7 players are the back 7 players.
Yeah. So I think the challenge, you're trying to find the combination of players in the back 7 that you like against every kind of personnel grouping. Which personnel grouping do you feel like stresses you the most? Do you feel like 11 stresses you because then your coverage guys getting matched against a wide receiver?
Yes. But we just went through and talked about a lot of this division and how they're coming at you with a lot of size and physicality. A lot of size and
guys that aren't runaway guys. You
could see the Chargers, at least until this vote goes through, still the most important thing you can do is win your division, right? So that's probably in mind with what they're doing. But also I think Kansas City at receivers a lot different than what we're seeing from the rest of this division. So there's a lot of variety here in this division.
I want to piggyback off that and ask you this. When they catch 11, do you feel like the front, like if it's Tuli, Khalil, Tart, and blank, whoever that fourth, like can that unit win if a team wants to live in 11 against you and kind of keep you in your nickel without the third safety on the field? Do they have enough there, or are you looking at that saying maybe that's how you try to play against the Chargers defense this year?
I think you're going to want to try to stress that the best you can and see how they can defend the run with potentially lighter boxes and smaller personnel. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, that's kind of the world the Chargers have lived in. When their run defense has been a little shaky. I know that they made a lot of strides last year, but how they could get this front to complement the back, I think, is going to be the story of this defense.
And the other part about it is the style of football that they play offensively. This was one of the most complimentary football-honed teams in the league last year. Now, there's some variance with that. Right, as far as turnovers are not a super stable statistic, and I know the Chargers. Did Herbert throw more interceptions than you can count on one hand last year in the regular season? I genuinely don't know off the top. I think
he did a nice job taking care of the football. Yeah, he threw 7 interceptions.
Okay, yeah. So his interception percentage was 0.6%.
That includes the playoffs. It's only 3 in the regular season. So Chargers fans, don't yell at me. I'm sorry that he threw 4 in the playoff game.
And that's why I specified the regular season, because I knew it said, well, this is what happens when your game script that you stuck to all year, unfortunately, doesn't play out in the postseason game, right? Yeah. And that's part of the big question. And I think that's why you saw kind of the Chargers go out and get some more weapons to diversify offensively. And they obviously should feel better about their ability to spread the field a little bit when they have to. But this is a team that is coming off of Herbert's best season, big bounce back year for the Chargers, foundational year last year. I think this team should feel good about where they're at, but this division is crowded, and I think sorting out that team 2, team 3. Do you think one of these teams will pass the Chiefs? I don't think I would pick it, just out of being conservative with track record, but these teams will have something to say about it when it's all said and done.
maybe it'll be the Chiefs' most challenging year, I think, in a while to claim this division. I'm not going to predict them to not, but I think there's a couple teams here that might have something to say about it.
And I'm just sitting here looking through in the Mahomes era. What did they win the division by in 23 when they went 11-6 and sleptwalk through the first 4 months of the season and were 9-6 before they ran off all those wins in a row to close the year? You think it'll be closer than that?
That was they didn't have another team with a winning record. The Raiders were 8-9 and the Broncos were 8-9 that year.
Oh, so they won the division by 3 years that year, and that's probably the tightest it's been.
Yeah, no other team had a winning record.
Well, and they won the division by 4 games this year because the Chargers were 11-6 and the Chiefs won 15. So
right, boy, they won 15. They sure did. They sure did, Kyle Krabs.
All right, now it's enough about the Chiefs. You guys are here to talk about the Chargers. We are done talking about the Chargers. We have the Chiefs tomorrow on the show, so we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. Kyle Krabs, Joe Marino, locked on NFL Scouting. We appreciate you guys as always for checking out the show. Make it a great rest of your day. We're out of here. Talk to you all again tomorrow to showcase the Kansas City Football Chiefs.